Most people think financial freedom is complicated, that it's for spreadsheet people, people who started earlier, people who already had money. I used to think that too. But what I eventually realised is this: financial freedom isn't complicated, it's just completely out of sequence. And once you see the gap between what comes in and what goes out, you can't unsee it. That's what changes everything. I'm Chris. I built a multi-million-pound property portfolio while working full-time and bringing up a family. And today I live on my passive income. But I didn't start here. I carried the pressure alone for years, and it took a toll. I learned the hard way, so you don't have to. Let me start with a feeling you might recognise. You're driving home from work, it's dark, it's raining, and the wipers are going back and forth. You've done another full day, you've put in the hours, been in the meetings, answered the emails. On paper, you're doing well, maybe better than you've ever done. But in the back of your mind, there's this quiet question: how am I working this hard and still feel like I'm one problem away from everything unravelling? You get home, shoes off, kids to bed, TV on. You're exhausted. And underneath the exhaustion, there's this low-level money anxiety that never quite leaves. That was me. Functional, responsible, but always slightly on edge. Not because I was stupid with money, not because I was lazy, because nobody had ever shown me a different way to think about it. For me, it came to a head on a Tuesday night, about 11:30. The house was finally quiet, everyone asleep, just me, the kitchen table, and the glow of the laptop. I opened my bank statement, and for the first time I didn't skim. I stared at the numbers, the salary landing in, the bills going out, the little taps of contactless here and there, the direct debits I'd forgotten about. And it hit me. I was earning decent money, but every month, by the time life had finished with it, there was basically nothing left. One thing going wrong, the car, the boiler, reduced hours, and I'd be in trouble. I remember feeling this mix of anger and embarrassment. How am I this grown up and this fragile? That's when I saw it. The gap. The space between what came in and what went out. And I realised that tiny space is everything. It's where resilience lives. It's where options live. It's the thing that quietly guards you against poverty, not just in your bank account, but in your head. Later, I started calling it gap, guard against poverty. But that night, it was just a horrible, honest question. Did I actually spend less than I earned this month, or not? No spreadsheets, no percentages, no clever app, just that. If £3,000 came in and £2,900 went out, there was a tiny gap. Not freedom, but a crack in the wall. If £3,000 came in and £3,200 went out, that wasn't a gap, that was a trap. Most people never look long enough to see it. Once I did, I couldn't unsee it. Those early days didn't feel like a stage. They felt like me, slightly panicked, realising money had been quietly leaking for years. I remember going back through a few months of statements, same pattern. Payday would land, bills would drain it. Then it was this slow slide towards the overdraft. Little comforts to get through the month. A takeaway here, a "we deserve this" there. Nothing outrageous, but together enough to erase any chance of a gap. The first thing I did wasn't heroic. I didn't launch a side hustle. I didn't read 10 finance books. I cancelled one thing. One direct debit that had been there so long I'd stopped seeing it. It saved a few quid a month. On its own, nothing. But the feeling of taking one tiny bit of control back, that was the beginning. I didn't know it at the time, But that was the start of what I now call momentum. Not because everything was moving quickly, but because for the first time it was moving in the right direction. You don't feel clever in that phase, you just feel slightly less out of control. A few months later, something quiet happened. I logged into my bank, half expecting the usual scraping the barrel feeling at the end of the month. And there was money still sitting there. Not loads, not Instagram success story money, just more than zero. I remember staring at it and feeling my shoulders actually drop, like my body realised it before my brain did. That month, the car could have died, or the boiler could have gone, and it would have been annoying, but not catastrophic. That was new. I wasn't refreshing my banking app every few hours. I wasn't lying awake doing mental maths in the dark. Life was still busy. Work was still work. But underneath it, there was this thin layer of stability that hadn't been there before. You're not rich. You're just not falling backwards every month. The dangerous bit here is you start to feel a little invincible. You think, brilliant, I'll stick it all in crypto, or I'm ready for passive income now. And in one or two rushed decisions, you can undo years of slow, boring progress. I nearly did that more than once. The only thing that stopped me was remembering how it felt to be right back on that kitchen table, staring at a bank statement I didn't want to look at. Growth didn't arrive with trumpets. It arrived as a question. Would you like to come and see this property? By this point, I had a bit of a buffer, a bit of a gap. I'd been learning, reading, talking to people who were ahead of me. Part of me was excited. Part of me was terrified. Because this was the first time I was looking at using debt, not just to plug a hole, but to build something. I remember walking around that first serious property viewing. The place wasn't glamorous. It had no roof, trees growing out of the walls, and the rest of the decay. But in my head I was running the numbers. What comes in? What goes out? What's left? Is there still a gap? That same question from the kitchen table now applied to a bigger decision. This is the bit that messes with people. For years you've been told all debt is bad. Then you see people using it well, and it's tempting to sprint. But here, more than anywhere, restraint matters. I took small steps, learned as I went, didn't chase the one big deal that would supposedly change everything overnight. That slow, measured approach is what turned growth from something that could blow me up into something that quietly built my future. Looking back at this phase, it was not flashy, just consistently making sure the gap survived every decision. Autonomy didn't feel like winning the lottery. It felt like a Tuesday. Bins out, kettle on. Everyone else at work. I remember one Monday in particular. I'd done my jobs for the morning, and that was it. The day was mine. There was nowhere I had to be, no tunnel of back-to-back meetings, no edge of burnout commute. If I wanted to do some work, I could. If I wanted to walk or read or fix something in the house, I could. My life was still ordinary, but underneath, something fundamental had shifted. The gap, built and protected over years, was now big enough and invested well enough to cover our life. Work had become a choice. I now call it living in the gain. Glorious autonomy and independence now. It sounds big, but in reality it's very small and very quiet. It's reading a book without checking the clock. It's going for a run in the afternoon. It's knowing that if your boss pushed too hard, you could say no and mean it. What nobody tells you is this: your bank balance can change faster than your identity. Even when you can leave work, your brain takes time to catch up. You still feel the old urges to overwork, to prove yourself, to say yes to everything. Untangling who you are from what you do for money is its own psychological journey. But that boring, peaceful, ordinary freedom, it's worth every awkward step. People often ask, what was the big secret? There wasn't one. What there was a monthly ritual that became non-negotiable. Same kitchen table, same laptop, same quiet house. Once a month, I'd sit down, open the bank statements and ask myself one question. Did I create a gap this month or a trap? That was it. Not 20 categories, not colour-coded spreadsheets, just that one honest look. If there was a gap, however small, I'd protect it. If there was a trap, I'd face it. It was calm, boring even, the opposite of what most finance gurus try to sell you. But that boring little ritual, repeated over and over, is what slowly moved me from panic to momentum to stability to growth to autonomy. I didn't build the from gap to gain roadmap because I was clever. I built it because I lived it. I made mistakes, I burned out, I carried too much alone. The thing that changed everything wasn't a trick or a hack or some secret investment. It was seeing the gap, being honest about it, and refusing to look away. Changing nothing changes nothing, but changing one thing, how you treat your money, how you treat your evenings, how you treat your future, changes everything. If any of this feels uncomfortably true, that's a good sign. It means you're closer than you think. This video is the overview, the map. Next, I'll go into each part of that journey properly, one at a time, with simple, concrete actions for busy working professionals. So tell me in the comments, where do you think you are right now? Are you still leaking money without realising? Or have you already started building your gap? And if you want to walk this path with me, hit subscribe, because there is another way, and it's simpler than you've been led to believe.